school committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 17th, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being video and audio recorded for future cable broadcast. If you will, please silence all your cell phones for the duration of the meeting. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's nice that we can do this together in person. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're going to begin with the approval of minutes, payroll, and warrants. If I may request a motion, please, of the approval of the minutes of June 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Approval of the executive session minutes of June 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Are those not to be released?
Doesn't say it on the agenda.
Not to be released.
Not to be released for the executive session. Okay, so if I'll restate that. If I can restate that. The approval of the executive session minutes of June 1st, 2021, not to be released.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Finally, the approval of payroll and warrants.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And they are approved. Thank you. All right, at this time we're going to go into the delegation portion of our event. So we are welcoming members of the public to come up to the podium and share any comments that they have about items on our agenda this evening. And I apologize in advance if I have to cut you off. We have to keep delegation to a strict 3 minutes. So please, anyone who would like to get up and share any feedback this evening, you're welcome to join at the podium. Oh, thanks.
First, I have a question.
Sure.
I see on the agenda that masks are not listed. Are they not listed today to talk about?
That will be part of our discussion when we're discussing reopening plans.
So it can be.
It can be discussed?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So my name is Michelle Gonzalez. I'm a parent of an 8th grader. Last year was a crazy year, as we all know. It wasn't very delightful for me as a parent to hear my student wearing his mask over and over, how difficult it was for him to breathe. He had one particular teacher that I can't tell you how many times on my hands he would come home and say, "The teacher's on my case all the time. I can't touch my mask where my nose is to gather, a breath." I let it go. Also, recesses were an issue. The students didn't always get it. But the reason why I'm here today is I would like the school committee to consider it to be a decision regarding masks on your own as far as parents. We're the ones who know our students more than yourselves, bottom line. We know who in our family has been vaccinated and those who not, and we know what to tell our children and what to abide by. This is going to be extremely hot for them to come into school in September when we know that in September it is extremely hot, very, very hot. There is no air conditioning in these buildings. I can't imagine my kid coming to school for almost 7 hours straight with a mask on, okay? Most of these kids don't even know how to properly wear a mask. They're constantly touching their masks. How do we know if these masks are even clean or not? Or they just got from the back seat of the car from the day before? I mean, where is the interest in knowing what the health conditions of these masks are for our kids? There's never going to be a study to know right now what's going to happen with them breathing carbon dioxide for this amount of hours. They need to be here to learn only, not to be concentrated on if they're properly wearing their masks or if the teachers over there are telling them or staring at them or the kids beside them, or are they bringing COVID? I mean, that was what was mentioned to my child. Put on your mask, you know, COVID. Okay? That teacher, all she had on her mind, besides teaching for the most part, was she getting COVID, maybe. Okay? If that person is so concerned about getting COVID, then they need to wear a mask. But my child, I feel, does not need to wear a mask. It is by choice, okay? They're here to learn. They're not here to worry. There is so much worry that these children have to come to school and attend to, whether it's family issues at home or learning disabilities that they might have. We need to not put these masks and hide their faces. Their faces need to be seen.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. We appreciate your feedback this evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa,
Good
and I'm
evening.
just here to speak on masks.
And your name, ma'am, for the record?
Lisa DeCosta Lopez. So it's become a topic of controversy for some. I'm speaking today on behalf of my children and for the parents.
Are the mics working?
Is it
I'm
on?
not hearing you either. It's down.
Yeah, it seems to be on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Not well. Not well.
Okay. Okay, Chris? Just give us 1 second, Ms. DeCosta.
That's fine.
I don't know if
He's in this room.
Can we have some, he's coming.
The mics are only for the video. They're not for projection in here.
Okay.
You may
Okay.
hear a little bit.
I can try to talk louder.
And if maybe cheat a little bit so that the public can hear you too, if you don't mind, sorry.
No, that's okay. So you want me to start? Okay.
Please.
So I'm speaking today on behalf of my children and for the parents that might be shy to speak out and for their speaking up for their own children's well-being. And I know plenty of them that are just afraid to speak out and get shunned because that seems to be the topic lately. DESE and the governor have not mandated a mask, but instead have made a strong recommendation for them. There's a difference between a mandate and a strong recommendation. We are told not to eat raw fish by the CDC, but yet so many of us still enjoy oysters and sushi. So I'm hoping that the Acushnet Public Schools will embrace the flexibility of offering a strong recommendation and not mandating a mask or distancing for the students in any setting. Children are extremely at low risk from death, hospitalization, or any adverse events due to COVID-19. They face a 3 to 4 times higher mortality rate risk from the flu versus COVID and 10 times the risk of suicide. Even with the Delta, children are extremely at a low risk, with some data suggesting that pediatric hospitalization rates for Delta are less than half of what they were for earlier variants. Children are not super spreaders. They are not reservoirs of COVID that is prolonging the pandemic. Multiple contact tracing studies have shown that the RO of children is actually below 1, meaning it is mathematically impossible for them to drive this epidemic. Mask mandates are especially in schools do not reduce school or community transmission. Wearing a face mask, physical side effects on children. Face masks impair face recognition and face identification. Face masks impair verbal and nonverbal communication. They block emotional signaling between teachers and learners. They're linked to dehydration, headaches, and skin rashes. Many times children have been told that they might be responsible for the death or sickness of others if they don't put on a mask. Some teachers, being persons of authority, insist on wearing masks despite children's complaints of typical symptoms of headaches and nausea that clearly indicate damage to danger caused by impeded breathing. The physical pressure, which legally constitutes coercion, consciously or unconsciously ignore any symptoms of possible CO2 retentions as results of the mask. Teachers are not trained to judge on CO2 poisoning exists and what signs require urgent removal of a mask. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention found that from April to October of 2020, hospitals across the U.S. saw a 24% increase a proportion of mental health emergency visits for children ages 5 to 11, and 31% increase for children ages 12 to 17. So in 2021, the New and Wellesley Hospital's children and adolescent psychiatric outpatient clinics have doubled compared to their pre-pandemic baseline. They experienced an 80% increase in mental health-related pediatric visits to their emergency room department, with the highest number of visits in 2021. The school board does not know our children to be making the medical decision for them. Putting a mask mandate on children is considered a medical decision. I know my children. I'm their voice when they have no voice. I should be the one to decide if they wear a mask or not. And if we're going to play the
Thank you
card,
so much for your commenting this
watching
evening.
out
We're
for
at 3 minutes. Thank you. I appreciate
the
your
at-risk,
comments.
well,
Thank you.
you know that game.
As I said previously, we have to keep comments to 3 minutes so that we can allow time for everyone to speak. I do appreciate your comments, Ms. DeCosta.
My name is Karen Peterson Dagnall. I wrote an email to one of Dr. Bailey, and I was going to read it, but it's kind of towards her, so I'm just going to say some comments that I'm wearing a mask. I feel strongly for masks. Delta is different than the other variant of, well, the original variant of COVID. You only need a few particles to infect. And when everybody's saying we don't know how, or we know that kids aren't affected, well, we don't know that. They're saying that the Delta variant could be more deadly to children. There are already hospitalizations. I work at Lifespan. I'm not a clinical person, but I know that our inpatient units are filling up, as they are at UMass Memorial Medical Center. My sister's a nurse there. The under 20 crowd is driving the inpatient units. Their beds are overflowing. And why? It's Delta. Now, you have a pile of kids in a class, 20 kids, they're all talking. You got particles that are flowing everywhere. They're breathing them in. They're unvaccinated. Half of this school is ineligible for any vaccination of any type. I understand it's hard to wear a mask. I don't want my, sorry. I don't want my son necessarily wearing a mask for 7 or 8 hours. It's nuts. It's crazy, right? But at the end of the day, we don't want transmission. Transmission is the fundamental thing we have to consider here. What's better? Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. People have been wearing masks for eons. Healthcare workers wear them all day long. There's no they're not asphyxiating themselves. They're not dying. They're not deprived of oxygen. They can breathe. Some of these masks are breathable. And I feel strongly. We all can say we know our kids. That's fine. I know my kid. I know everybody knows their kid. But let's face it, we're out and about. You come in contact with somebody. All that's really needed for transmission is just a close conversation. Like, it's as catchy as the chicken pox. I think that to say the idea of wearing a mask is abhorrent. Kids need to be seen. Yes, they do. But at the end of the day, we're in a dire time with Delta, and it's very dangerous. It's more dangerous than the original COVID strain. So I think that I feel strongly that the scientific facts have to override the need and desire at this time for children's faces and facial expressions to be seen. Do you want your child to potentially end up in the hospital? No. If he or she can't be seen, that's terrible. But I really feel like at the end of the day, the health is of utmost concern. And as far as mental...
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you this
I'm
evening?
doing well, thank you. My name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
And I am the mom of 2 boys, 1 in each school. So I'm here also to discuss the masks. My young son had a horrid time last year, and not because they're uncomfortable. There are plenty of things we do to our kids that are uncomfortable, like putting pantyhose on little girls, but mostly because of the health effects, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Yes, the Delta variant is out there. It is more transmittable, but there is not enough science to say that it is more dangerous. Definitely more transmittable. So I am asking that you guys allow us to make the decision for our children, okay? By forcing children to cover their faces, do you take into consideration or even think about the damage you're instilling into them? You're telling these kids that the very air that they need to breathe is toxic and that they and everyone around them is sick, okay? COVID poses almost no risk to our children. 4.2 million kids have been tested positive for COVID, and of that, 0.008 have died. COVID poses less risk to our children than the normal flu. Now, we all know the flu magically disappeared last year. However, the CDC stated in the 2018 to 2019 season that 480 children died of the flu. That's 480 children in months. That is more children dying in months than of COVID in a year and a half. In 17 months, less children have died of COVID. Forcing our children to wear masks for fear of a virus that poses almost no threat to them and causing them medical issues is abuse on that child. Munchkin syndrome by proxy is what we are doing to our children. We are instilling our fears into them and making them do things through fear. If I were to send my kids in full hockey gear to school because I was afraid that they were going to fall and hurt themselves, you guys would think that I was ridiculous and it's unnecessary. Let us make the decision for what we feel our children need. I'm not asking you, don't let masks come into school. What I'm asking you is to let us make the decision for our children. I'm not sure if you guys know about the health effects of making kids breathe through spit, sweat, dirt-soaked pieces of cloth. I'm not sure if you've even looked at the research and seen what disease-causing bacteria is embedded into those fibers. But I have packets for you. I can gladly give it to you. I made enough for everybody. Available science and public health data states masking young children is wholly inconsistent. Multiple studies have shown of the many mitigation measures tried, masking did not lead to decreased COVID stats or spread.
Michelle, thank you for your comments tonight.
Hello, my name is Margaret Vieira.
Hi.
And I am a parent and I'm also a teacher in the school district. I actually don't have anything to say about masks. I have really no opinion on them to say for or against. What I am actually more interested in, and what once you're in the schools and you're working with the kids, what was more detrimental to our teaching style was the social distancing and students being quarantined for long periods of time. So as you talk about the reopening plans, that's something that I would like to hear about you know, if we can get the kids closer together, if we can have them working, if no masks mean that they have to stay apart, or if wearing masks means that they can come together. I am actually more interested in the social distancing aspect. If buses are going to be quarantined, if somebody is ill on the bus, if classes are going to be quarantined, things like that. As a parent, those emails gave me more of a gut, you know, a drop in my gut than sending my children to school with a mask each day. So that really is what I'm most interested in, is those quarantining and social distancing guidelines.
Thank you, Ms. Farah.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Carolyn Mall. My daughter and my grandson live with me. She's not here tonight because they're on vacation in Pennsylvania. But but I take care of my grandson and get him on and off the school for the elementary school. I'm totally against masks, but if other people want to wear it, that's fine. But we should have the choice. We should be able to choose what we want. I'm probably the oldest person, one of the oldest persons in here. And the way I grew up, you know, I don't even remember washing my hands before supper. My biggest worry is everyone wants to live in a sterilized world. You're going to end up with no immunities. You're going to take the mask off and get a cold and die. That's just my opinion.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Catherine Furtado. I have a son in the middle school, a daughter in the elementary school, and another one in high school at Fairhaven. My question is more about the remote learning. I'm a single parent. It's very hard to work full time and take care of my kids and have them do their stuff. At the beginning of the year, it was very difficult. So my question is, would you have an alternative plan? I do have friends in other private and public schools that had their cafeterias open and social distance kids, so you could still drop them off and they'd hang there and do all their schoolwork there. So I'm wondering if you have an alternative plan to having my kids stay home alone while I have to work, because my work is not remote, my work is in person. So that's what my concern is the remote, and reconsider and just have alternative options for people who have no choice but to work. So that was all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Furtado.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping time.
Hi, sorry. My name is Julie LaVoy. I'm a mother of two kids. Both are in Acushnet Elementary School. They're both special needs. One has autism with ADHD and anxiety. The other one has ADHD and anxiety. I first and foremost want to say I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker, so I get a little nervous up here. I 100% respect the fear that parents have and the uncertainty and the lack of studies. I work in clinical science. I have worked on some of the trials for these vaccines. So I very much understand the confusion and the lack of information and the fear that comes along with COVID. But I want to talk to you as a special needs mom about what these masks do in terms of special needs. Can a normal child get through a school day with a mask and not be too traumatized? Probably. But a non-neurotypical kid, a neurodivergent kid, doesn't handle masks the same way. And they don't within each other. For example, my autistic child actually loved them because she felt like she could hide. That was like fascinating for her. Frightening for me because she has ASD, she needs to socialize. She needs to get that one-on-one contact with other people and not feel secure behind a mask. But from the other standpoint, my 9-year-old came out of school every single day crying because she wasn't just uncomfortable. She has ADHD, so she can't pay attention. She's constantly distracted. She was falling behind in things like reading and math, everything, because she just could not focus, and that's with medication. So for me as a special needs mom, I have to say that I'm for not taking this away from the parents, that the choice should be with the parents. We're at a stage where we do have vaccines readily available to anyone, any adult who is concerned. We know that COVID does not really affect children to the level it does adults. So the thing that I want to pose to you guys is, if it's adults that are worried about COVID, they have the ability to get vaccinated. It's free. Chief Gallagher is amazing. He has made it so that any possible person who needed the vaccine or wanted or even thought about it had the opportunity to get it. So for any adult who's worried, get the vaccine, let the kids breathe, and let the kids focus on education, which is the point of why we're here. The DESE is also saying, which DESE, I hate DESE, I'm sorry, they're a terrorist organization, but they're also not mandating it. The state isn't mandating it.
Thank you, Mrs. Lavoy. I appreciate your comments, but we're at 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Make sure this isn't too loud. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Boucher. I'm a chiropractic physician. I've been a chiropractor for 26 years. I've served on the finance committee for 16 years here in this town. I'm going to offer my professional opinion on masking and the vaccines. I'm against mandates, number one. I am not against masking or the vaccine if you choose to get it. I'm against the vaccines for kids. I'm not in favor of that at all, because kids' immune systems are very healthy, and they actually need to be exposed to different viruses and bugs. And some of the hospitalizations we're seeing around the country right now are due to another condition called RSV, which is known as respiratory syncytial virus. And when kids are isolated for a period of time, their immune system's kind of shut down, and then they can't fight things off as good as they normally would be able to. And then you end up in the hospital with RSV or something else. It's not just all COVID hospitalizations. There's a lot of misinformation out there. The CDC is actually messed up numerous times with information that they've gotten from the state of Florida, and they have to go back and change it. So all I can say to parents out here is educate yourself as much as you can and do as much research on your own. Because I'm not going to subject my son, who graduated from the middle school 2 years ago, to an experimental vaccine, and I don't even care if it's FDA approved, because the FDA has approved many drugs over the years, and they've taken approximately 30 drugs off the market. Most recently that I can think of is Vioxx, which was a pain medication, an anti-inflammatory, and it caused cardiopulmonary disease in a lot of patients, and it was removed. So the FDA, they studied it for 2 years, they got their FDA approval, but then they had to take it off the market. So, like I said, I'm not against the vaccines. If you're an adult and you have several comorbidities and you're high risk, you should probably get it, because it can harm, the disease can harm you. It's real. I had it, I recuperated from it. I'm not getting the vaccine, that's my choice. I'm gonna go with my durable immunity, which is long-lasting, and is evidence that it's going to be long-lasting. Once our antibodies are no longer showing up on a simple blood test, what happens is what's called cell-mediated immunity, and that's when our bone marrow kicks in, and our T cells and B cells go into action to fight that virus the second time you're exposed to it. So there's really no need to get the vaccine on top of it after you've already had COVID naturally. Now,
You know, I appreciate
Sorry,
all your
I took too much time.
information. We're not really talking about, we're talking about the reopening plan, so we've...
Right, I know, I just wanted to give my professional opinion, because I know there's a lot of talk out there about a lot of these topics.
Yep.
The bottom line, I think parents should have freedom of choice.
Sure.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Allison Loisel. I did not come with prepared remarks because I didn't realize we were going to have public comment period. So I am also here as a special needs mom. I have 2 children, one who would be in the elementary school, and she's been home with me because she has what's called a coronary fistula. So she has a congenital heart defect. So while COVID, for the majority of children, doesn't give them drastic effects, it can affect some, and any changes or cardiac changes in her condition could make something a whole lot worse and then make her a candidate for heart surgery. So my firstborn child is at the middle school, and he has specific learning disabilities. So he has dyslexia, he has an auditory processing disorder. He was in school because of his IEP 4 days a week last year for the entirety of the year, wearing a mask and coping with a lack of a middle ear reflex on one side. And he had no problems with that mask. Now, I sent him with multiple masks. He changed throughout the day. He put on a fresh mask. There was no issue with having a dirty mask or anything. I have concerns that if this is a public school, it's a public building, this is our children entitled to an education that keeps them safe. And my concern is that if we don't have masks in place and we're leaving it up to the discretion of parents, they have that right to make that choice for their children outside of the school day. But my taxes, and I've been a lifelong resident of this town, my brother was a first responder, he was a police officer for the town 20 years ago. They have a right to that education safely also. And I do have concerns with the Delta variant, with the transmissibility, with the less than 15 minutes they're seeing of exposure, that would be a risk. It would be a risk for our family, and it would be a risk for others. So I am asking that we do have masks in place in our public facilities here for all of the children of town to remain safe and get the education that they deserve.
Thank you, Allison.
Hello, my name is Jamie Bettencourt, and I have a daughter who's about to enter the 6th grade this year. And unfortunately, because of all the unknown of everything last year, she was never able to enjoy her 5th grade here at middle school. So it started off as everyone, coming together, and then quickly got shut down because of everything that happened. So I am against the mask, and I understand that there are a lot of concerns on both ends. I just know personally myself, I had to figure it out last year and do everything for my daughter for this entire 5th grade and starting the middle school. And I feel like if fear is instilled that much in someone, then they should probably think of ways that maybe they should keep their child home, because it's not fair that my child had to stay home, So it's almost like we're getting all of this evidence, we're getting all of this data. There are new variant, like they're saying, absolutely, but there is no threat to the children. It is so minute. So I am for the choice. If you choose to wear one, if you choose to not wear one, if you choose to send your child to school, if you choose to not send your child to school, I think anyway, like this mom had said, there needs to be a backup plan for parents who are not comfortable, bringing their child to school, because, people do have to work. So I had to, I work for myself. Luckily, I was able to change my entire schedule around. But a lot of parents can't do that. So I think there needs to be that backup plan for the ones that want to be able to say, hey, I'm not comfortable enough sending my child, so I want my child to be home. But I think we're all agreeing, most of us, and it's choice. So we should have the choice as a parent. It is our child. It is our choice to stay, to come, to go, to mask, to not mask, to vaccinate, to not vaccinate. So I think it should be left up to us. And there are, I was just looking, several districts surrounding us that are not mandating it as well. So Lakeville, Dighton, Rehoboth, there are many. So I'm just hoping that, you're listening to all of us tonight and taking that into consideration. Thank you.
Madam Chair, school committee members, Dr. Bailey, Kristen, Kelly, Dr. Howcroft, welcome. I am Lisa Cavallo. I'm the Acushnet Teachers Association president, and I knew this was going to be a hot topic this summer, even though I tried to tell Dr. Bailey I was on vacation until yesterday. I still got the call and knew that this was going to be on the agenda tonight. So like I normally do, I send out a happy summer, hope everybody's enjoying it, and here's a quick survey just to kind of get a pulse on how people were feeling, because as this room is, the country is, it's very divided, and I wanted to know what people were feeling. Because ultimately, if we can't staff our schools because people are sick, then all of this other stuff doesn't really matter, right? There's only so many teachers, there's only so many subs, and if people are sick because of the variant or because of COVID, how do you staff the district? How do kids get a good education? So one of the questions that I asked was, coming back, what are you most comfortable with? And 58% of people were comfortable wearing masks indoors, especially the non-vaccinated ones. 72% of the staff felt that only non-vaccinated should be mandated to wear masks inside, and that vaccinated students and staff shouldn't have to wear masks inside. So that was kind of a high number. 68% of the staff are only comfortable returning with masks, full masks. But I think that the most important question that I actually asked was, how did the staff feel about all of the protocols that were put into place last year? And, you know, we know how much work went into it, how much support from the committee, and how much work, you know, Dr. Bailey and her team put into making sure that staff and students alike were safe. And 98% of staff were either extremely satisfied or satisfied with the protocols that were put into place last year with COVID. So I'm just hoping that, you know, we have some empathy for people, because it doesn't sound like that when you hear some of the conversations that have been had up here on how people are feeling about wearing masks to school. Personally, I am vaccinated. I do wear a mask around people that I don't know, because I don't know where they have been or what they've been doing. And I will probably choose to wear a mask to school. But ultimately, we need to think about, you know, how are we going to keep everybody safe and in school? You know, we have families that are struggling, going to work, and, you know, having to teach their kids and work all day, as well as our staff. I mean, last year was a very stressful year for our staff of doing asynchronous and synchronous learning at the same time. Not many districts did that. So, you know, we need to think about how we're going to react if we do have some kind of an outbreak. What are the expectations going to be on our staff, on our families, and most importantly, on our kids? So,
thank you, Lisa.
There's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So my name's Donnie. I have 2 kids, 2 boys, 2 young boys in the district, both elementary school. Real quick, hopefully less than 3 minutes. I like to talk long. It's a bad habit of mine. I go on forever.
Don't worry, I'll cut you off.
When it's cute, the light, something like that, right? So I'll try to keep it short, right? A few things. First, a little bit of data, just a little tiny snippet, but unfortunately, data without context can be misconstrued, but it's very recent and very relevant. This is from an epidemiologist. I can't even spell that word, barely say it. It's not me, right? Somebody who studies diseases. They posted up recently that last week, 23 states, 1.9% of the kids' cases resulted in hospitalization. It was like 2,000 kids went to the hospital. So 1.9% of the kids who got COVID went to the hospital. Whether it's Delta, whether it's Echo, whether it's Foxtrot, I don't know. It's not my lane. I try to stay in my lane, which is why I'm not going to profess to you about my feelings about how I feel it should be handled and how the kids should do, so on and so forth, whatever. There are people who are much better at this than I am, who have done decades of research on this stuff, who do it for a living. And if they're saying that, hey, listen, masks mitigate, if they're saying social distance mitigate, so on and so forth, whatever, well, then so be it. That leads me to say about masks and so on and so forth, it's about risk mitigation, not risk elimination. I know very commonly we say, hey, listen, you can have a mask on and 0.001 nanoparticles gets through and you can get Delta variant. I get it. It doesn't eliminate all risk. It's risk mitigation. If you have a mask, if I have a mask, if we're 40 feet apart in different building, very, very low risk. If I have a mask, if you don't, and we're 3 feet apart, more risk, right? So I get why I want to have, my point being more about just the mask issue is about if we're going to actually have risk mitigation protocols in general, whether it be distancing, whether it be masks, so on and so forth, have at it. And I'll leave you with an analogy. I'm sitting there listening very intently to very smart people, very concerned parents, right? All great people, no doubt about it, right? And I rack my brain and say, hey, how can I get this across to people on about it's my choice, what I feel I should do, my kid should do, but it impacts other people. It's kind of like drunk driving, right? You have a few drinks, you're like, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm good to go. You can't tell me if I should have 3 drinks, 4 drinks, 5 drinks. I drive down the road, I cross the line, I smash into you. Well, your kid was on a car seat, he had a seatbelt on, you were doing the speed limit, you were doing everything right. But I kind of made a mistake. I increased the risk that I could accidentally run into you. I did, your kid dies. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Is that mandated? Yes, because sometimes even though there may be consensus about what's okay or not okay, I may perceive my risk is 3 or 4 beers and you may say it's 2, right? My perception is not always spot on. That's why sometimes it has to be mandated that, listen, hey, here's the deal. Since we don't do exact risk mitigation that's the best for everybody, we got to have something. So that's it. I'm not going to quote DESI or CDC, so on and so forth, whatever. Some kind of risk mitigation. I trust you, men and women, to get together, right, and come up with some kind of plan to help us out. All right, thank you.
Okay, Donnie, thank you.
Hi, my name's Erika Chevalier.
Hi.
I don't public speak ever, so this is very
okay.
out of my norm, but I am just here on behalf of my two kids that are in, one's going to second grade, one's going to third. They are in the summer program right now, and I know it's optional, and I know they come out with masks on. I'm not sure. I thought it was a parent choice, but I'm just saying that hopefully in 2 weeks it can still be a parent's choice, that they can go in and do what they want to do and learn. They're here to learn. They're not here to be pulling at their face. I feel like the more they touch their face wearing a mask, it's more germs because, as we know, kids are very dirty and they touch everything, but now they're just touching their mouth and putting all their germs in their mouth. I had COVID back in May. My daughter and my son drink out of my water cup all the time. I was coughing. I was sneezing. They're always around me. None of my kids got it. My husband didn't get it. Nobody got it. If they didn't get it from my saliva, they're not going to get it from someone that's a classmate in school or not going to give it to them. I think it's a very, very, very low rate, and I think it should be up to the parents. I would just like you to, while you do vote later, go back and be a 5-year-old, be a 6-year-old, be a 7-year-old in a classroom all day and being with a mask on for 6+ hours in a very hot building. If you're going to mandate masks, please mandate AC for every room or fans or something. Keep these kids cool, because keeping a mask on all day for these kids, in my eyes, is child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's it for tonight. Thank you, everyone who came today and shared your thoughts about this very important topic. So we're going to move on in our agenda now to old business. We have a school committee policy that we need to vote on. It's the School Property Disposal Procedures DN. So this is a second reading and vote. Anything to share on that, Dr. Bailey? No?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. It's in the packet. We've all had a chance to review it. So if I could request a motion, please, to approve School Property Disposal Procedures DN.
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's passed. New business, Dr. Bailey, your report.
Okay. So I'll begin with the personnel report. You can see it's lengthy this month. We had hired 13 new staff members throughout the summer, and we actually have 3 new pending hires this week. We have 2 resignations, 2 retirements. One is not effective until 2022, 5 terminations, and 3 transfers. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions about the report? Yes.
Are we missing any major players here? Like first grade teachers, second grade, fourth grade?
So we did, I believe we just received a resignation today. So we are, as we receive word, we post it on School Spring, and we're interviewing. I know the principals have been very diligent in interviewing this summer. So, yeah, we should be okay.
No issues for the start of the school year?
As far as I know, no.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing I have is the Summer Acceleration Academy. This is just to let you know that we received a $30,500 grant to run an Acceleration Academy. We're running it this week. And I will have our Director of Curriculum, Ms. Rigari, do a report in September on the entire summer school program as well as the Acceleration Academy. But I wanted the committee to be aware that we received this wonderful grant, and we do have quite a few students in school this week.
Do you know how many, approximately?
Is it 65? 65.
Only comment on there that I was disappointed in Governor Baker or whoever created this, that 3 of our grades weren't included in it. I mean, it was what, 5th, 6th, and 7th wasn't included in this, but every other grade was. So I'm hoping that maybe if they continue this, that they'll open it up with the next other 3 grades.
Yeah. They were pretty particular, and again, we'll go through this in greater depth in September, but they were pretty particular that the lower grades that were chosen would focus on ELA, and the upper grades would focus on math. And it was, you know, set guidelines for that. Any other questions?
No, it's good news, thanks.
All right, next we have the FMS teacher handbook and the student handbook, and I would ask the principal, Mrs. Sylvia, to just review, you know, any major changes with that for the committee.
So, welcome. Nice to see all of you here. Like I've done every single year, we've changed the names, we've updated the dates in the calendar. This year, though, we tried to consolidate it to even a smaller version if you were to print it out. So we've inputted all kinds of links. Links that link to DESE, links that link to our Acushnet school committee policies. The link is right there. Instead of copying and pasting and putting the words into the handbook, we linked it. Note on page 11 in the student handbook, the shoe option for parent pickup has been eliminated. We did it last year. We had the parents back into a parking space at the end of the day, and the kids walked out, and it did eliminate a lot of the traffic backup because the kids are exiting at different times. So it doesn't hold up the shoe if somebody is waiting for an 8th grader. So we did try it out last year, Sarah, and it did work. So just to note that that's one of the biggest changes in the chute. Page 5 in the teacher handbook does need to be updated for the hours. The first class begins at 8 o'clock, so our school day is 8 to 2:45. And so we were letting the students in earlier, and they were waiting at the 6 feet distance, and as soon as the 8 o'clock bell rings, they left and they went to class, and class began. Staff handbook will be emailed to all faculty and staff. The student handbook will be posted on our webpage, emailed home to families. Both handbooks have Google Forms at the end to fill out and collect the data that way. So it's all electronic, eliminating a lot of the paper waste back and forth. Questions?
None here.
The pickup and drop off, will that be on the website, like the homepage, like the bus routes?
Yes, I can put that there if you'd like.
I think that'd be much easier for parents.
Okay.
Sometimes drop off, sometimes don't.
Right, and we had been sending it home in the Ford newsletters also at the beginning of the year last year. That was up in front and center also. Okay. Questions?
So we would be looking for a vote on those 2 things, the Ford Middle School teacher handbook to accept that, and also the student handbook from Ford.
Okay, if I could request a motion to accept the FMS teacher handbook.
Make a motion. Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. And if I could request another motion, please, to accept the FMS student handbook.
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Sylvia. Next up, I would ask Mrs. Chesney, our new AES principal, welcome to your first in-person school committee meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
To outline the teacher handbook for AES as well as the student handbook.
So just as in Ford Middle School, we did a lot of similar updates where we added in links for form policies for both of the handbooks. We removed hybrid planning because that's not relevant right now. We are using an internal website for staff access, which they actually started last year rather than a Google folder. And we just updated our fire evacuation procedure. Nothing really specific, just adding a little red and green card so Mrs. Pacetto and I can run around and visually check which students are out and accounted for during a fire drill. So we basically made it more streamlined. Same thing with the parent-student handbook. We updated the names, the dates. We also added, just as they have in Ford, a school-related problems and concerns guideline page, a frequently asked question page, and other policies like the free and reduced meals that needed to be changed. And then on page 22, we just updated the bus violations, kind of made it a little bit clear. It just seemed to be a little less concrete. And just as with Ford, we are going to be asking parents to complete a Google form online, staff to complete a Google form online. We're going to be also electronically sending both of those forms in the same way.
Great.
Are there any questions?
That's great. I don't have any questions.
Is the drop-off on here? I'm just trying to...
It's the same, and we do have it on the website already. And then the bus, once we get the bus routes, we're going to also upload those on the website as well as keep them in the handbook.
Okay. Once again, if I could approve a motion, if I could request a motion, please, to accept the AES teacher handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. If I could request another motion, please, to accept the AES student handbook.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, looks like that's all passed and accepted.
Thank you.
All right, clothing collection bins.
Yes, next up, clothing collection bin. Many schools and organizations have these clothing collection bins. And what that is, it's actually an ongoing fundraiser. So it's something that we wanted to try. It's 5 cents per pound for clothing and shoes. I believe it's called Planet Aid is the best one that we've looked into. And they actually said we'd have a choice of, we could actually personalize it a bit if we wanted a wooden type of shed so it wouldn't look, the look of it would sort of blend in. We don't want anything that looks bad on our grounds. But it's something that we wanted to try. We heard they're very responsive. If there's extra clothing, they come that day to pick it up. I know other schools in the area and other organizations make quite a bit of money, and that's why you see them at all the schools, but I did not want to do this if anyone on the committee had a strong objection to putting a couple of clothing bins out on campus. So I just wanted to run that by you.
Mhm.
It doesn't require a vote, but I just wanted to bring it up to make sure there were no big objections.
I don't see any problems.
I just have a question. Will they monitor the clothing bins? Because I find there's one in my neighborhood, and people drop everything off.
Yes.
And furniture,
Yeah.
garbage, and it becomes unsightly in some neighborhoods. So I'm just wondering if I'm just questioning whether they will continuously the pick up and clean up at a very frequent intervals.
Yeah.
So
I know the corner you're referring to.
It's near you too.
You don't want Sanford and Son, on our campus, right? So if our facilities director, Steve Willett, takes a lot of pride.
Oh yeah,
in our
he'll take care of
grounds.
that, I'm sure.
And the minute he sees something, I know that he will take care of it. We'll make a phone call, and Planet Aid has assured us that they would be extremely responsive. And again, this is something we'd like to try.
Oh yes.
So we didn't see any harm in it because it's money for the children in the school. So right now, I know that Kristen's working with the town to try to get an account set up. And if we don't have that in time, I would ask the PTO just to take that money in until we got something set up. So, but we can work out the details on that. So unless anybody has any strong objections to a clothing bin or two on campus, all right. Thank you.
I think you have our blessing.
All right, well, I think it's something nice for the community as well. We all
So
try
too.
to, help out.
Right.
Reopening plans. I guess we all want to talk about that.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I equate this to a snow day. Not everyone is going to be happy with our decision. right? I mean, you heard tonight, there are people on opposite ends of this issue, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. Earlier in the summer, I had said to you that if DESE does not require a mandate, that it would go up for a school committee vote, and here we are. I do plan to make a recommendation. So DESE and DPH have aligned themselves to say that if, people are vaccinated in grades 6 and up or 7 and up, they wouldn't have to wear masks. Unvaccinated children would have to wear masks. That's very difficult running a school district to figure out. We have no way logistically of knowing who is vaccinated and who is not vaccinated. It is recommended on the honor system, and unfortunately, we know how sometimes that goes. We ran the school district last year through COVID. Our children did very well with masks. I'm a parent. I really don't like wearing masks either, but I have to look at it through the lens as a superintendent of running a school district. We have to figure out who's a close contact. If they don't have masks on, what do we do? They have to quarantine. There's still the 7 and 10-day quarantining that goes into this. What I don't want to have happen is children to be at home again. The goal here, the first goal is always health and safety of our children and our staff. And then the second goal is to educate our children. And, I think our teachers did a wonderful job last year of dealing with the hybrid model. It was not easy. We had a lot of training, and I commend them for everything they did. But we all know that children learn best when they're in person. So my goal is to get the kids in and have them stay in as much as possible. As far as distancing, right now, as we know, that was one of the mitigation strategies, is masking and distancing. They've sort of lessened, the recommendations have been lessened on the distancing. So, our goal would be to distance as feasible. We went from 6 feet spacing last year when we didn't have all children back down to 3 feet spacing, and even a little bit more greater distance in some of our classrooms that had less students. We didn't have any issues. There's a lot of hype right now on social media. And again, everybody is looking at this through their own lens, right? A parent looks at it as they want their choice, and I respect that so much. I also respect the doctors who have made the recommendations for us to follow. The CDC has given us guidance that we should have masking, universal masking right now while indoors. So you've got the CDC experts, you've got DESE and DPH, and here's the thing. I am not an infectious disease expert. I am a school superintendent. I talk to many colleagues throughout the state. The majority of superintendents at this point in time, to my knowledge, they are recommending universal masking, and that is to run a school district to keep children safe, as well as to avoid kids being out of school for a long length of time. I understand that people are polar opposites. I love working in this community, and what I'm hopeful is that we can be empathetic and understanding of each other's opinion. It doesn't mean that I love the masks, but what I would like us to do is get settled into school. My recommendation would be universal masking for adults and children to start school, to get us in routines, because again, we're lessening the strategy of social distancing. We're getting all kids back. We did not have any major issues last year with students masking. We're also very flexible. Our educators work really well with kids who have special needs, who have particular issues. We're not so stringent that a child can't take their mask off. I think we have to be reasonable and apply common sense to all of this. But I think What I don't want to have happen is have everybody doing something different, and then we're trying to figure out who's at home, who's at school, which teacher is going to turn the camera on. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't like chaos. It doesn't work for the adults. It doesn't work for the kids. I like structure and organization. My recommendation would be to have the children all back 5 days a week, regular schedule, but it would be to start the year universal masking. And it would also be, I never make these decisions in isolation. We had a committee last year, which a couple of you were on the committee, with the health experts, the local board of health. I speak to them on, at least a weekly basis. They have their department meeting next week. They will be discussing this. I was on a webinar today with the Board of Health and DESE. We're constantly learning, and the information is constantly changing. And, whoever said it tonight, we don't know everything, right? I would rather err on the side of caution at this point in time when we have this many children and adults together in small spaces, instead of quarantining, which we're going to have to be mandated to do. One of the other things that they're coming out with, and it's very preliminary and new, is a test and stay program. So the state wants districts to sign up for something called a test and stay program, where, if there's close contacts, you can get tested and you can stay in school if you're not testing positive. So I just want to say that my recommendation, but I will respect whatever the committee decides, because it's truly your decision as the policymakers of our school district. I also respect the people who spoke tonight and the different, I will say, I speak to parents all the time. I talk to parents who don't want masks, but I also talk to a lot of parents who want masks. It's very, very divided. And I would love for us as a school community to come together and work it out together. And I don't make these decisions in isolation, but in the best interest and the greater good of all of our children and staff. And we have some very unique needs health-wise that I am aware of. So again, that is my recommendation through the lens of a superintendent.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
Madam Chairman, should we put her recommendation in Dr. Bailey's into a motion?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is just allow briefly for each member to share, to ask a question or to share their thoughts on this before we do that. But that is the idea, Mr. Hallcroft, that we would bring her recommendation to a vote. So if I could just continue for a moment. I just want to say that, Dr. Bailey, thank you for that. And personally, I'm one voice on this committee, but I do agree with your recommendations. I'm supportive of your recommendations. But again, I would like to allow each member an opportunity to speak. And I'll ask you, just as I asked the public, because we have such a lengthy agenda tonight, to just keep your comments brief, and then we'll move into our vote, okay? All right.
Before we get into comments, can I just ask a question? Because I'd like to hear from some other people first. But just, Dr. Bailey, just wanted a clarification on the quarantine stuff, and then also the distance learning. I could have sworn so I thought in our last meeting the quarantining had kind of gone away, or it's back, or it never went away.
No, so they're saying that a close contact will need to quarantine at home for at least 7 days from the point of exposure. However, they're trying to bring in this test and stay program so that instead of quarantining, if a child tests negative,
that's right.
They would be allowed to stay in school.
Okay.
So
I recall that.
It's something that we're going to seriously look into, and I'd like to vet that out through our CCR group with the fire chief, the Board of Health. We have school committee administrators, like many stakeholders are on that group. And again, it's so new right now. The information I can tell you that's coming through is changing daily. So I'm learning quite a bit. I'm certainly not an expert on it, but as far as I know, and the information as of right now, is there is quarantining between 7 and 10 days, depending on the situation, whether you're asymptomatic or symptomatic. So that is one concern that I have in terms of keeping track of all of these close contacts.
My other question was on the distance learning or remote learning. I thought they had said we're no longer allowed to do that, but is that something that we would do during a quarantine?
So Desi has said no more full remote learning. So as you recall, we had many families chose to be in something called TECA last year. However, during that time, Desi also said if a child had to be home due to a COVID exposure or an issue with COVID, that we have to educate them. So again, we had cameras put in the classroom. This would be something that we would have to bargain with the teachers union. I think our teachers did an excellent job with it last year. I was very, very pleased and proud of our teaching staff here. But, you know, it's not easy. It's one thing if you have one student who is a close contact. When you start getting multiple kids, it's hard for one adult teacher to manage children at home, you know, whether it's 7 kids at home and, you know, 10 kids in front of them. It's a little bit easier when you have one child at home who's on camera than trying to manage multiple settings. So that's why I mentioned that with the quarantining. It's one of my concerns.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Teves, do you have any other questions or comments?
I have comments, but I guess like to hear from the committee members that have kids in the school first. Probably.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Gomes. Sure.
I'll ask questions first.
Of course.
And then
Yeah, go ahead.
At least it'll be answered. So the quarantining, is that mandated by the state or is it a recommendation?
I believe it's mandated. I didn't mention this. Children, there's a federal guideline right now that children must wear masks on the bus. So children will be masked to school. The thing about wearing masks is they're easy on, easy off kind of a thing. They're already going to have the masks on the school bus, and that is not a choice for us to vote on. It's a federal requirement. So.
We're not sure about the quarantining for the 7 days.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it is.
It is.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
And then my other question, the rapid testing. Parents, I know it's this one and whatever, but that exists now. I mean, you can get tested today and in 2 hours, know your results.
Yeah, so it's a different type of test. I believe one of the tests is a saliva swab. Anyone who chooses to do it, the parents would have to sign off. And if they choose not to sign off, then the child would have to quarantine the whole time versus if they chose to do the test and it came back fine, they could stay in school. So it is something we want to look into and vet out with our committee. And it's so new, but Desi is saying they will support the districts who they're encouraging this.
What about the old way though, the nasal swab? If a parent, let's say a parent finds out that they're close contact today, can they go tomorrow morning to their doctors or wherever gets tested, find out that they're negative 2 days later, and then the child goes back to school day 2?
So I think if they're a close contact in school, they're going to have to quarantine a certain number of days. So I called the Board of Health about this issue today, and we were on a webinar, but I can tell you that even the experts are saying, well, we'll get back to you. Like, there's so much unknown, and this is why I sit here as not the expert in COVID, but to say, as a school superintendent, we've got to run a district and manage it well. And I think we did do a really good job last year of managing our district and our kids during this pandemic. And it's a health crisis right now. Unfortunately, the pandemic is not over. We did loosen up this summer. We didn't have nearly as many children, but we took a very common sense approach to what we're doing. What I'd like to do is get us in a routine and then start looking at the data, start, you know, making decisions together as a group.
And then my final question, can we do the 3 feet starting from the first day of school and
Yes.
maintain that throughout the school,
Yes.
regardless of masks or no masks?
So that is the only way we can get all children back, is to do 3 feet. And And again, we distance when feasible. So at lunchtime, we're going to have to figure out distance when feasible. Maybe we do every other seat. But again, that is something that I would want our principals, some parents and teachers, we have to make it manageable. We have to staff this. We know that socialization is very important for children, you know, so we want to have a common sense approach to this. We know that they can't wear these when they eat, but, you know, we also know that maybe they shouldn't be sitting right next to each other, but they should still sit in a place where they can socialize, and then put the mask back on after they're finished eating.
Or if they do like a reading, like a pair of readers go in a corner to read, that they would wear a mask.
Correct.
Common sense things.
Correct.
They're on top of one another.
Yes.
So Dr. Bailey, along the same lines in terms of the distance, so this puts our average class size from what to what, roughly?
So I don't think it really changes the averages of our classes. I think we had kids at 20, 22. Maybe the principals could correct me if I'm wrong, but does that sound about right? Yeah, so the averages haven't really changed. We had less students enrolled last year because a lot of families decided they wanted to do TECA or, you know, homeschool. And again, just as many people who want the mask, we have people on the other end saying they're afraid to send their kids, you know, without a mask. So I listen to both ends, but I also have to run a school district and make it work for everybody, including the adults and the kids. Believe me, I don't want to wear these all year. I don't. But right now, with the way that the numbers are going, and now that we're going to do 3 feet and not the 6 feet, I say let's do one thing at a time. Let's get our routines in place, and then let's look at it, you know. Overall, our kids did not have major problems with this last year.
You have a question, Mr. Hall?
I have a question. When you're speaking with the Board of Health today, did they indicate what the positivity rate in Acushnet was, and what in the number and percentages of those that have been vaccinated? Now, we get the call every Friday at 6:10, but you know, I wonder if there's any update other than that.
I didn't get it from the Board of Health, but and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the percentage is over 6%. That's the last that I heard.
6.12 is what I saw. That was a day or two
6.12, and I think a couple of weeks ago it was at 2%. So it's definitely increased. I think Acushnet is also on the list. I know Acushnet is on the list for not having as many people vaccinated as the state average.
Correct. Yeah. So we have a lower vaccination rate in Acushnet, and also we have almost a 3 times amount of positivity rate than the state average. Is that correct?
I don't know.
It was
that's correct.
the state is 2.7.
0.69.
Okay.
And we had
2.6. So,
Yes.
and we're over 6. So maybe it's 2.5 times, maybe not 3. Would you say?
Right.
So for some reason, whether we're in Bristol County, whether it's or something's happening, So there was something that we should keep in mind when we make a decision, that we are impacted higher than the state average right at this point.
Which is why DESE they strongly recommend districts to have this masking indoors, but they left it up to local, because out in Western Mass and maybe some places in Central Mass, they're not seeing the numbers that perhaps the Boston area or the South Coast is seeing. So again, we as a committee need to make the best, or you need to make the best decision you can based on what you feel is best for our students and staff.
I do have comments, Madam Chair, but I'd like to hear the questions first, and then I would like to,
Ms. Coates has another question.
And forgive me, because I don't know this, but was that 6% out of the people that were tested, or out of the entire population?
Positivity rate, I think, of those that are tested, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We can't ever at this point. We're in our meeting now, so that would have had to be held to delegation.
I think the more important thing that we should be tracking probably is because this is, I think, how the CDC is reporting the numbers now, which is the unique cases. So we have a lot of retesting that's coming up. So somebody needs to go back to work. They need to get a positive test. They've already tested positive. Now they're retesting. And so those same positive tests are getting into, and they're sifting through that and looking through kind of unique new cases. And I think that's where, you know, we should probably be looking as a committee. But that's just my thoughts. So I don't know. It's really, the problem is it's really hard to figure out where the heck to get the information from. So it's like, I have no idea. I didn't get the information that you got, Mr. Hood. I got like, they're giving like a number now. It's like 24. I don't know what it was, 24.7, which is out of 100,000. I'm like, well, how many people are in Acushnet? I don't know. So then I'm tapping on my fingers, figuring out, doing math. I said, oh, there's 10,000 people in Acushnet. That's 2.4 a day. So I'm trying to, like, over the last 2 weeks, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, it's clear as mud.
By the time you get anything, you're not even sure if you trust it because you've looked at so many different things to get there. So it isn't easy.
By the time I get the information, it's already been updated. So it's really difficult for us to be able to make heads and tails of any of that information. It's really difficult. I wish it was simpler.
I think we should just look at what the experts, I'm talking about experts, not those who are playing political checkers, are telling us. The Center of Disease Control, the one main source, American Pediatric Association. Those are the experts, in my estimation, that are trying to give direction to decision makers on a local level. Unfortunately, I think our governor just copped out. And not given the leadership that we need, need. But that's just a personal thing. But that's where we're in the quandary. But we just have to turn and look at what the experts, the authorized, credible experts are saying, and try to make some sense out of it. My comments are, I don't want to be jumping in, but because I was paying a great deal of attention, as all of you have, to this issue. The first thing in the morning I turn on is, CNN and MSNBC and get all the statistics that's happening all over the country and so forth. And what we're faced with is that this Delta variant is very dangerous to children. It's not the other one that we just gone through. This is one. Now it hasn't hit yet as hard in Northeast except probably as in the South, the southern states where children are dying and will die. So I had to basically just thinking of why I'm even here as a school committee member and so forth is. And I have to look at what you mentioned. You're a school superintendent. You probably have other feelings, but as a school superintendent, you have to make recommendations based on your role of office and what your responsibilities are. And I have the same thing as a school committee member to act in what is according to my oath of office. We take an oath about supporting the Constitution of the United States. And in the last paragraph of the Constitution, it says all citizens have because he was men, but we call citizens have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The first term in that is life. And I have a sworn duty to protect the lives of every child and person working in who comes into this facility. That is my role as a school committee member. My role of school is to protect the health and safety of each staff person and each child. This virus can be deadly to children. I've been around a long time. And let me just tell you that children don't die easily. They die crying. They die begging. When it's a respiratory, they're hacking. It's something that any parent should not experience at all. And so therefore, in no way can we have any type of allowance of any type of possibility that that will affect anybody's child in our own community. So therefore, I really support the mandate, for masking is to protect the lives of everyone in this who comes into our buildings. I probably have some other comments, but I think that going back to to what is just basic, and it's basic is we've got to keep our children safe and healthy. That is their rights. It's the United Nations for Universal Rights of Children. That is primarily what the goals of all nations of this world should be doing, and should be doing it right here. Thank you.
Mr. Hood, do you have anything to
Sure.
share?
I'll try to be brief. So first of all, let me just say that I respect everybody who came out here tonight to give their opinion. I respect all the members of this committee. I have no doubt that everybody on this committee and the folks in the audience have the children's best interests at heart, but we obviously have some differences of opinion. When I joined this committee a year or so ago, I thought maybe I could help advance the district like that much, right? Because it's government, and I didn't think that a year and a half later I'd still be talking about COVID and masks. So unfortunately, that's the situation that that we're dealt with and that we have to deal with today. So, and I feel like Mr. Howarth, I feel a tremendous obligation, right, to provide the safest environment for the kids, for the staff, for the administration, for the community, right, because we're all part of that community. So, for me, it comes down to there's a big chunk of our kids that are unprotected. They can't be vaccinated, right? So whether you agree with vaccinations or not, they can't be. The data shows that kids are not as susceptible, most likely, right, to getting severely sick. But kids are getting sick, and some are having ramifications. And the reality is that none of us know what the long-term effects are of this virus or the new variant. So it's hard to make a decision and determine what's the best course of action, right, because there's so many unknowns. So, I step back and I look at it as a committee member, right? I have an obligation to protect everybody, so I respect those folks who say, hey, as a parent, I should make that decision. But at the same time, a decision maybe to not mask somebody or not vaccinate someone can affect somebody else's child, and that's a tough position to be in. So, as a member of this committee, as a parent, as a member of the community, I just can't in good faith make any other decision other than to support the experts. And, at the end of the day or down the line, if we look at this and we say, hey, or I say, you were probably a little too conservative with this, I can accept that. But if, God forbid, something were to happen to one or more kids, and I can't live with or accept the fact that, hey, maybe you could have done more to protect them. So, as a result of that, I'm going to support the guidance.
Thank you.
I also respect everybody's wishes to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. I strongly believe that, it's a parent's choice of what they do with their children. I completely respect parents that want to pull their children out because they feel safer with them at home. I respect parents that want to just bring their children to school and let them be maskless. I'm a parent of 2 children, and my opinion personally is, again, might be different than what I am or the decisions that I make as a school committee member. As a school committee member, I feel that the majority of people that I have spoken with, parents and staff members, feel that it's up to the individual to choose. It's up to the parents to decide. I am in good faith thinking that I would not support this recommendation.
just because, again, I really believe that a parent has a right to choose. And again, if you feel comfortable with your children wearing a mask, 2 masks, hazmat suit, that is your right to do. Same thing with the staff or any type of adult. If you want a vaccination and wear, a face mask, and that's your right as well. I really think that, people need to choose what they'd like to do. And again, I know children are not vaccinated under the age of 12. However, if you feel that your child is in danger, then you have that right to use school choice or to homeschool. So there are other options out there, but for my vote that is going to happen here soon, it'll be to decline the recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Teves, do you have any comments to share?
I mean, when the guidance was released, I took it quite literally that was, I guess, the recommendation that, it was going to be strongly recommended that everybody wear masks, which I think would just kind of fit in line with what our kids are doing anyway. So, just about anywhere else they're going, masks are recommended, and, even, kids' sports, theaters, going to Fenway Park or, Gillette Stadium, wherever. I mean, that's kind of what's happening outside of school. And so, with that said, then it kind of said, well, no, that's the recommendation of the committee. I said, oh, well, that changes things, and that kind of, made me think about, I guess, my kids. So my kids don't go to this district anymore, but they did something that no child in this district did last year, which was to go to school every single day in person with masks on. And I can tell you for sure that my kids, you saw changes in them physically. One was probably affected more than the other from wearing the mask. He has a physical obstruction, and that doesn't qualify as a medical exemption, and he had surgery for that year. And kids were complaining of headaches a lot. So, with that said, I just thought of all the kids with, attentional issues and kids with disabilities, kids who are hard of hearing, kids with asthma, kids with allergies, kids with anxiety and depression, and kids who wear eyeglasses. And I just thought it was, equally as unfair to kind of put broad, sweeping kind of mandates in place for these kids because and so it was a difficult decision for me, but ultimately I came to the conclusion that I don't know the right answer, and there's no right answer for everyone, and I think it would be impossible for any member of this committee or any member of the town or any member of this administration to say that with absolute certainty, right, that we know what's best for everyone's child. And so I kept going back to the thought of, well, when you don't have the best answer for every child in the district, you got to rely on the only people who are capable of making those decisions for their kids, and that's their parents. I make very difficult decisions for my kids all the time. And they're not always the right decision, but they were the best decision at the time. And so I have a lot of faith in the people of Acushnet to make the right decisions for the community, for their families. And so I would prefer to leave it up to them to decide.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So with that, we're going to take a roll call vote on this decision. So if I could, the motion would be to accept or to approve Dr. Bailey's recommendation of universal mask wearing for teachers and students. For
Indoors.
Indoors. That's right, indoors. To start. And then this would be closely reviewed as we move through school. Yes.
Question.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is the right time for this, but if if we're doing, let's do the vote first, I guess.
Okay.
I wanted to clarify, instead of keeping it ambiguous in regards to, okay, if, regardless of how the vote goes, right? What's our next point where we're going to intervene and have this discussion again? So for example, what metric, what measurement, like what are we looking for that's going to suddenly, change our mind and say, so I'm just looking for less ambiguity on kind of when we would reconvene on these things. Do we have any structure for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, go ahead, Ms. Gomes.
I would recommend maybe a motion to accept this accept Dr. Bailey's recommendation and review in 1 month's time, something along those lines where.
1 month from this date?
From this date, or from the first day of school, something along those
No,
lines.
I would, Madam Chairman, I'd like to amend that amendment to say maybe a 3-month. I think a 1 month is too short a period for any type of accurate, evaluation. I see your point about, but I think that we get school started, get things going, and seeing what's happening, because we don't know, once schools in the whole area become active, what the rates of transmission are going to be. So it's going to take a while for that information to, be filtering. So if if there's going to be maybe amendment to that, I would suggest a 3-month review of that, and then even bring some people to the board that have been actively working in this area to give us some type of their knowledge of the issue.
With all due respect, I wouldn't want to get together and not talk about it.
Well, I was just going to say that, Mr. Tebbs, is that we have a regular schedule of school committee meetings where we're meeting on a monthly basis. And this is such a fluid situation that we should be reviewing this constantly. And we should be in communication with our teachers and staff constantly, and parents constantly, which I have to credit Dr. Bailey for doing an incredible job last year with communications and trying to be transparent and trying to get everybody's voice to the table and make the best decision possible. So I think we need to be reviewing this constantly, being nimble, and trying to make decisions based on data and what the experts are telling us as well. So, yep.
Just to go along with that point, the CCR team meets regularly. Last year, we were meeting every other week, and what we can do is, if we don't know something or there's a big issue that comes up, we call a meeting. And last year, our meetings were virtual. Everybody was at the table, and I'm more than happy to update the committee. I agree, there should be an update on this each month.
Every school committee meeting.
Yeah.
At
the school committee, it should just be a standing agenda item at every meeting.
Yes, because if we're meeting as a CCR group outside, then we can update the full committee on our progress and how we're vetting things out and anything new that comes to the table, because I can tell you, it is so fluid. We're getting new information daily. So yeah, I think it should be, while we're in this pandemic, I think it should be a standing agenda item. It doesn't necessarily have to be a vote every month, but I definitely feel like it should be a standing item for discussion or, an update.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the motion, are we putting any kind of timestamp on that? I think 3 months doesn't.
I don't think we should.
No. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right, so with that, if I could request a motion to accept Dr. Bailey's recommendation for universal mask wearing indoors for staff and students to be reviewed on a regular monthly basis.
Make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so we're going to take a roll call vote on this. So Ms. Benavides, when you're ready.
Mrs. Gomes?
Nay.
Mr. Tebbs?
No.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mr. Howcroft?
Yes.
Ms. Downing?
Yes.
So the yeses have it, 3.
And as I said, there is no right answer here, but what I would really love is for us as a community to support each other. We have a school district to run. We have to educate our children. I don't like these either, but I do think our educators know how to deal with children in a very positive way. And if there are issues that creep up with children, we will take a very common sense approach to it, and we will, make sure we have mask breaks. And if anybody has any issues along the way, call the principal or my office, and we're more than happy to address any issue that comes up. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bailey. All right, we're going to move into the business manager's report. Mrs. Flynn, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. I will try to be as brief as possible. I know there's a lot on the agenda tonight, and we've gotten through a lot of important stuff. So just in brief, the balance as of 6:30 for our FY21 budget that was returned to the town is estimated to be $232,000. Now, there still may be some adjusting entries on the town side, but I anticipate it's going to be about that amount. That is after contributing $85,000 to the Special Education Stabilization Fund, and after prepaying $135,000 in special education tuition prepays. And as you know, we had some significant balances in our out-of-district tuition and salary accounts and transportation. So a lot of those funds were used for approved year-end purchases. And there's a list of those in your packet that you can review. I also included the budget summary. It's a familiar report to you, the consolidated year-to-date budget. And at the end, I will be asking for budget transfers that need a vote. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do those now. So what you'll need to look at is the budget transfer request form, and it says transfers between function codes, which needs a school committee vote. So real briefly, per school committee policy, budget transfers are allowed between similar function codes, instruction to instruction. But when it's in this year, we had a lot of deficits in facilities and technology, as you would expect during the pandemic. So in all of our surpluses, a lot of them were in salaries and tuitions, in the 2000 accounts, the instruction accounts, the salaries, and the tuition accounts. So, and also the transportation. So that's why we need the school committee vote. So the one transfer that we have, you can see there's probably about, 20 lines to it, and it's mostly transferring into facilities, custodial supplies, utilities, maintenance equipment, maintenance repair, service contracts, and other items. So we're looking to transfer from special ed transportation. As you know, we had a lot of students that didn't need transportation last year, and a lot of, there were some actual, no pay remote days, no remote days that we didn't pay for. So that's what we're looking to transfer. So if I could have a motion to accept this transfer, please.
May I request a motion to accept the transfer?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The other transfer that I will request tonight is to transfer funds from the school budget to the special ed stabilization account. This will bring the amount that we are looking to transfer into it, $85,000. That will bring it up to our max, our ceiling, as to what we can contribute, and that's based on the Department of Education's net school spending. So if net school spending goes up next year, then we could quite possibly transfer more money into it, but this is the amount that will get us to our ceiling. So I'm looking for a vote to accept to transfer $85,000 from special education contract services into the special ed stabilization account.
I'll so move on that one.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So the rest of my report you can take a look at. I have a grants update. So I just included the balances in all of our grants as of July 29th. We still have some that are open, and these are grants that carry over, so it's not, you know, when we have balances in our local budget at the end of the year, then that's it, it's gone. But these grants carry over from year to year. They have sometimes an 18-month time limit, so we do still have some funds available in those grants, you can see. I also included the ESSER 2 grant. That's the $304,000 grant, and it has been applied for and approved from DESE. So you can see in your materials the line items that the application was made for and approved for. I also included just a brief topic of the ESSER 3 grant, $688,000 that we will be applying for, and planning for that grant is underway. And also the Summer Acceleration Academy grant of $30,500 that Dr. Bailey spoke of earlier.
And just to add for the ESSER 3, we're going to be meeting and talking to various stakeholders, including students, because that is a requirement of ESSER 3, to have input into that grant money. So you'll be hearing from me soon.
Okay, and just real quick, I also listed some of the summer projects that we've completed or are underway this summer. So we've been very busy. We've completed quite a few, the evaporators and condensers at Ford Middle School. The gymnasium partition was recently completed last week. We are doing some upgrades on our security cameras, the access control and intercom system, updating the phone system, the server, and the lines. That's completed. We updated our copier fleet. Outdoor classroom Wi-Fi was completed. And we are also planning to install 5 more touch panels. And I believe there's even more to come in the ESSER grants. We had safety inspections of Big and Little Toy, and we took care of the recommendations for that. And we've also had the driveway repaired behind our offices by the DPW, and they also poured the concrete pad for the shed that is to be built by Old Colony. You know, again, I have to give always kudos to our custodians and our facilities staff and our technology staff for doing all this work over the summer, especially our custodial staff. We were down 3 of our 7 custodians for the entire summer. We recently got 2 back, and then 1 went out, and we have an unfilled position. So we are really short-staffed, but they've done a fabulous job of getting the buildings ready. There's still some work to go, but I just want it to, I can't go unsaid that they've done it with certainly not full steam. You know, we don't have a full staff. So we have 2 positions open right now that, you know, one of them has been open for probably the entire year, on and off. So, and we don't really have any subs either. So we've really, what they've been able to do with the resources and the staff they have is phenomenal. So, you know, kudos to them. It never goes without saying.
That's fun. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Will the custodians be able to keep up with the deep cleaning throughout this year?
So the deep cleaning was done on Wednesdays, and so those were the non-school days, right? So that won't be able to be done. We'll be back to our regular, you know, day shift custodians and night shift custodians. Right now, we are utilizing Saturdays to actually keep up with the summer cleaning. So hopefully we can do some of that as we move into the fall. We used some of our COVID funds for that last year. We will have to look at to see whether the overtime we can write that into ESSER 3 if that's one of the things, or if there's any more, I don't know if there's any more town cares money. So to answer your question, there won't be the additional cleaning on Wednesdays that was happening because we don't have that time available to us. But certainly we have been using Saturdays to keep up with. And, you know, we will see as the school year progresses, you know, if that is feasible.
Are you using the machines, the air machines and everything? Because that's something different than we've done in previous years, correct?
Right. We purchased 2 of the sit-down floor cleaning machines, and that seems to, cover a lot more ground more quickly, the floor cleaning machines.
I'm talking about the air ones.
Oh,
I'm worried about, yes. We have to worry about more than just COVID. I mean, we got the flu virus.
Right. So yes. So every classroom or office space was outfitted with an air purifier. It's right there. Those aren't going away, so we still have those. The upkeep on those, I think it was Mr. Hood that brought it up, or Mr. Tevs, the changing of the filters. So that's something that we have to. We had purchased a lot last year with our funds, so we'll have to certainly keep that up. But we do; those are still, available.
So we're not using those air things that fog.
Yes,
right,
the wands.
That cafeteria
the
as
wands.
well after every lunch shift. Is that all continuing or not?
Yes. So those cleaning protocols, those. I don't know, we have to sit down and talk about lunchtime and how, the children are going to be scheduled for lunch and what the cleaning will be. But yes, even before the pandemic, the custodians were using the spray guns that were the disinfectant. It's like it's not a cleaner, it just is a touch disinfectant. So what they would do in this room, for example, is they would come in here, probably vacuum the rugs, empty the trash. As they go out, they would spray the touch points, the handles, the door handles, places where people were touching. And that's what they would do in the classrooms, right? To do the door handles, in the bathrooms, things like that. So that was just an additional layer. So that is still, available to them, of course.
Thank you.
And we still have, our hand sanitizer. That was one thing in the regulations, in the recommendations that DESE did recommend to continue with hand sanitizing. So we have all of the wall hand sanitizers available. There's some stands in different places in the hallways that are available. We have made those available on the buses. The buses will be equipped with masks. As Dr. Bailey said, it's a federal public health order that students must wear masks on the bus. It's not up to the local communities. It's a federal public health order. So we will be equipping the buses with masks in the event children don't have one. And that is for students and staff on the bus. But the good news about that is on the bus, DESE is telling us as long as all students are wearing masks and they're required on the bus, and the windows are open, students will not be subject to the quarantine rules on the bus, no matter the distance, if the windows are open and the students are masked. So that will help us out as well, because there is no spacing on the buses anymore. The only spacing would be if the bus isn't full, right? So that's good news with the buses, and I've already informed the bus company about that. So they should be keeping the windows open on the bus as weather permits. I mean, at this point, if it's a cold, raining day, as we've said throughout, have to use common sense. So we will still be continuing with those protocols. Yes.
Ms. Flynn, my questions were in regards to the HEPA filters. I think he answered that. I assume just stockpiling those is going to continue to change those. I think that's really important since we made that investment to keep those up. And then my second question was about ventilation. Are we good to go on? I know we had a lot of servicing last year on the ventilation systems, and I think both schools, but mostly the elementary, perhaps. Are we good to go on those?
We went through the buildings as we could last year with the ventilation, and as I just reached out a few days ago to our facilities director to make sure if there's anything else that we need to continue on. But I think, in terms of getting everything up to speed, we were in good shape last year. That was one, bright light of this pandemic, is it afforded us the time and the funds to really get all of our HVAC components back in working order. I mean, it was evidenced by our electric bill, I think, by our, by the amount that we went over on electric running that. So will continue, certainly. That will continue taking a look at all of those components. It's an older buildings. We think these are new, at least I do, but they're really not. So there's always going to be belts, motors that need changing, that go out of service. So we'll be sure to be keeping on top of that. In terms of, also what you talked about, the air filters. In this building, we have a lot of univents in the classrooms, and that's what does our air exchange in this building. Those all have filters in them, and so with a position that we wrote into the ESSER 2 grant, it's a facilities position, and that will allow us to have someone that will be cleaning and changing those filters on a more regular basis. Unfortunately, we've had the posting up. We haven't had a lot of interest in the position. I'm hoping that, after some of the aid ends, that we might entice people back to work. So that position will certainly be another layer. So we will have one more, hopefully when we hire all of our custodians, we will have 7 custodians, which is one more than we had before the pandemic. And we will have one more facilities worker, which is one more than we had before the pandemic, and that will help with those efforts too.
And can I just add, I do have knowledge from the facilities director that they did start changing those filters today.
They've been doing them. They've been doing the filters, throughout the summer.
Like
in
the individual classroom ones, you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. So they've been doing that, and that's something, sadly, when we've lost people, and we went down from 2 maintenance people to 1 maintenance person, that was something that we strove to do every break, but a lot of times it just wasn't time permitting with the labor resources that we have. So we do have a part-time person that's been doing a lot of that work, so that's been helpful too. So we are in a better position with staffing in our facilities department. If we could just get back to full staffing, we'd be really, really great. A few more items real quick. We have I just want to update you on the roof project. We're going to delay it, obviously, until next summer. The architect finished the bid specs in late May, early June. We scheduled the bid opening for early July. Part of that was a pre-bid walkthrough in June, and which I attended. A lot of the potential bidders and some suppliers were there. They all, expressed concern over 2 things: receiving the materials in time to do construction this summer, and also the cost of the supplies. So the consensus was made in speaking with our team, the owner's project manager, which is assigned by the MSBA, the architect, the designer, and the MSBA met, and it was decided to postpone construction until next summer. So the plan right now is to go out to bid in February, March, and that way we'll be ready to go right as soon as the last day of school hits and get that roof replaced. So far, so good with the roof. We have there are some leaks. There are some leaks in this building too. But the good thing is that we're still able to address them. We have some funds from the town, from town meeting, that allow us to fix those leaks. And even if we didn't, we just have to find a way to fix the leaking roof. One more thing, the soccer field work phase 2. AYSA started phase 2. They were approved for some funds at the last town meeting, and the DPW actually started work this week or last week, and that's the area behind the superintendent's office. So that next set of fields that they will be renovating for us. You do have, real quick, you have the school nutrition reports of the lunches sold and the income. There's no problems there. Because of all of the meals that were provided and the reimbursements, all meals are free again this year, universal free breakfast and lunch for all students. So there's a lot of reimbursements that come into us for that, so it helps us with our programs. So I believe that is all I have.
Question, how's that going to work with breakfast? Are they going to be in the classrooms?
So I think that's something that now that I think we were waiting for any guidance in terms of school lunch and breakfast from DESE. I don't think that there's anything new. So that's something that the schools will be working on, between now and then, to see how that is going to work, how they're going to be providing breakfast to the students.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, I welcome school committee members, if you have any reports to share. No? Okay. There are also a number of communications noted on the agenda, letters to families, articles, budget transfers and such that were included. And we are now going to be moving into an executive session, not to return to public meeting, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. So with that, if I could make a motion, please, to move into executive session.
So move.
Second.
Okay, do we need a roll call? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. We appreciate your engagement.